Yo, what's going on? I appreciate everybody for tuning in. All my folks in the chat. People was on here chatting early as hell before the live started. I definitely appreciate that. Today we're going to talk about what's circling around the entire news. Y'all may have heard all the details, but we're going to go through two things and watch one video. We're going to go through the actual indictment. Some of it is kind of duplicative in nature, and because of that, we may skip around the parts that are more uh, I guess, entertaining and has more information. The other thing we're going to look at is the detention letter. It essentially lays out the factual basis for why the government did not want Mr. Combs to have a bond. As always, licensed attorney, not legal advice, opinion, takes, topics, all of that good stuff. And if you get something out of this video, definitely hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification, all of that good stuff. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's see. Y'all want that? Let's let's roll with that one right there. I think we'll roll with that one right there. All right, so this is the formerly sealed, now unsealed indictment. Grand jury charges, the overview. For decades, Diddy, the defendant, abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in, attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. You know the crazy part about this is that I put it. I'm gonna just put the comment up. Let me just put my comment up. This is the wildest part to me right here. Everything that he's into, that he's involved in, most of it is because of that comment right on the screen. That's just kind of wild. Like, bro, about to lose everything is a damn shame. Let's see. He's not planning to go down alone. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken a plea deal. It's too early in the game. Nobody ever take a plea deal or plead guilty this early in the game. All right, let's see. Paragraph 2. The defendant operated a business headquarters in various Manhattan and Los Angeles under a variety of U.S. based corporations, entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, Comb Global. Corporate entities and Comb businesses included, among other things, record label, a recording studio, an apparel line, an alcoholic spirits business, a marketing agency, and a television network and media company. This dude's an idiot. At all times relevant to this indictment, the defendant engaged in persistent, pervasive patterns of abuse towards women and other individuals. This abuse was at times verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. As part of his pattern of abuse, Combs manipulated women to participate in highly orchestrated performances of sexual activity with male commercial sex workers. I think that was strategically put in there because you know how the black community is like. It could have just said sex worker. They like participated activity with male commercial sex workers. At times, Combs and others acting at his direction made arrangements for women and commercial sex workers to fly to Combs' location. Combs ensured participation from the women by, among other things, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same, and using intimidation and violence. Physical abuse by the defendant was recurrent and widely known on numerous occasions from at least in or about 2009 and continued for years. Combe assaulted women by, among other things, sorry, I heard something outside, by, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at, and kicking them. These assaults were at times witnessed by others and included in one instance at a Los Angeles hotel and or about March 16th, which was captured on video and later publicly reported when Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a woman as she was attempting to leave. A member of the hotel security staff intervened. Combs attempted to bribe the staff member to ensure silence. Combs' violence was also not limited to these women. It extended to his employees, witnesses to his abuse, and others. The defendant used Combs' businesses, including certain employees to carry out, facilitate, and cover up his abuse in commercial sex. Those employees, including security staff, household Gene Deal, security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high ranking supervisors and other close associate actors as Combs' intermediaries, and their conduct was facilitated and assisted by Combs' control of the Combs business. All right, let's see. Next, let's take a look at. Yeah, this dude crazy. Like, y'all think he gonna be in general population, or they gonna have him in like ad seg? If they put him in general population, ooh, that's gonna be rough. All right, the Combs Enterprises, from at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment, the defendant and others known and unknown were members and associates of criminal organizations hereinafter referred to as the Enterprise or Comb Enterprises. Members and associates of the Comb Enterprise engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for the purposes of prostitution, coercion, and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The Combs Enterprises, including its leadership, its members, and its associate, constitute an enterprise as defined by Title 18 of United States Code, Section 1961, subsection 4. That is a group of individuals associated in fact, although not a legal entity. The Combs Enterprises consisted of the defendant entities within Combs businesses, including but not limited to Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Global, blah, blah, blah. Individuals employed by and associated with Combs businesses and others known and unknown. The Combs Enterprise constituted an ongoing, here we talking all the general RICO language that they want to put in. The Combs Enterprise constituted an ongoing organization whose members function as a continuing unit for a common purpose of achieving objectives of the Combs Enterprise. The Combs Enterprise was engaged in and its activities affected interstate and foreign commerce. The Combs Enterprise operated in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. At times, the defendant was the leader of the Combs Enterprises. The defendant and others known and unknown participated in unlawful and other activities related to the conduct of the enterprise. These individuals included certain Combs business employees, such as members of his security staff, household staff, personal assistants, high-ranking supervisors, and other associated of, and others associates of Combs. Purpose of Combs Enterprise include the following: operating a global business in the media, entertainment, and lifestyle industry, including, among other things, record label, recording studio, apparel line, blah, blah. Preserving, protecting, promoting, and enhancing the power, reputation, and brand of Sean Combs. The defendant is a musician, entrepreneur, and figure in the entertainment industry. Enriching members and associates of the enterprise, including its leader, Combs, and in particular those who demonstrated loyalty to Combs and willingness to conceal his crimes. This reads exactly like if you go read like the YSL RICO indictment, they all use the same language. They just adjust the actions that they put in, but they all generally read the same way. It says, all right, fulfilling the personal desire of Combs, particularly those related to Combs' sexual gratification, including through the exploitation of women and the use of commercial sex workers, enabling Combs and other members and associates of the enterprise to engage in unlawful acts of violence, including sexual violence, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion, enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics distribution, and other crimes, and concealing the commission of such acts. Securing absolute loyalty from members of the Comb Enterprise, including through acts of violence and threat. Protecting the Comb Enterprise and its members and associates, including Combs, from detection and prosecution by law enforcement authorities through acts of intimidation, manipulation, bribery, and threats of retaliation against individuals who witnessed the crimes committed by members and associates of the enterprise. Means and methods of the enterprise. The defendant and other members, associates of the enterprise, conduct and participate in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs Enterprise, including the following: Combs and other members and associates of the Combs Enterprise withheld the power and prestige of Combs' role at the Combs business to intimidate, threaten, and lure female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then threat of force and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers that Combs referred to as, among other things, freak offs. The freak offs were elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, other stuff. I'm gonna skip that word because YouTube be tripping, and often electronically recorded. That's what really screwed him over. I mean, the overall stupid conduct screwed him over, but the electronical recording, he fucked. In arranging these freak offs, Combs, with the assistants and members and associates of Comb Enterprises, transported and caused to be transported commercial sex workers across states' lines. These FOs occurred regularly, sometimes lasting multiple days, and often involved multiple workers. During these FOs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances uh, to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant. Sometimes, unbeknownst to the victims, Combe kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in acts with sex workers. After the FOs, Combs and the victims typically receive IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and drug use. That's crazy work. That that's crazy work. And it talks about a little bit of what we talked about before, the J. Edgar Hoover approach. Let's see. I appreciate everybody who in the chat. Someone will start singing to get out of trouble. The first one gets the better deal. So it's a race now to see who will be the snitch. I think that stage is already come and gone. I think that's the before you when you going after a criminal organization, when you go pick up the Don or the mafioso or El Jefe, you already got to have all your witnesses and snitches in place. So it's gonna be interesting to see all of the supporters who I'm gonna assume just based on interviews who, strong supporters like Stevie J. Hey, not saying he's involved, but Stevie J, Harf Pierre, all of those guys who are named in all of these other civil allegations. It's going to be interesting to see where they end up playing out. That will begin interesting regarding snitching. He is still well connected with loyal people. Yeah, for now he's done. I agree. All right, let's see. All right, where we at? So they needed the IV fluids. All right, here we go. Here we go. Members and associates of Comb Enterprises, high ranking supervisors, among other things, they would book hotel rooms for the FOs, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with the required FO supplies, including controlled substances, baby oil, lubricants, extra linen, and lighting. Outside of the drugs, I mean, like, hey, that's what when you got a weekend away, you probably gonna need. You may not need 1,000 gallons of baby oil, but hey, a little baby oil, a little baby oil go a long way. All right, linen, cleaning the hotel rooms after the FOs and trying to mitigate room damages, uh, arranging for travel for victims, the sex workers, and Combs to and from these FOs, resupplying Combs with the requested supplies, delivering large sums of cash to Combs to pay for the workers, and scheduling the delivery of IV fluids. IV fluids is wow. I thought the closest I get to IV fluid when you get old, I gotta keep like a bottle of water and a Gatorade by the nightstand. But have to have IV fluids is wow. You that's crazy work. In or about March 2004, during searches of Combe residences in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized various FO supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. That's hilarious that they just put that in there. They just keep stressing that. Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to cause the victims to engage in the FOs. Combs maintained control over his victims through physical violence, promise of career opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victims' appearance, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substances. All right, I'm a pause it right there because I want to ask y'all a question. Y'all let me know. I want to ask y'all a question. Early on, when all the civil litigation broke out and the complaint with Cassie went over that, I said his biggest legal mistake that he made, not including the alleged violations of the law, but his biggest legal mistake that was made, in my opinion, is I guarantee you Cassie's attorneys came to him before they filed anything in court. I would put a large sum of money that Cassie's attorneys reached out to him to try to get a resolution before they actually filed the complaint in court. And because of his ego, and he's just a liar, the same way he said none of it was true, because of his ego and because I feel fairly positive he told his attorneys that none of that shit was true. There's no way he told his attorneys, "Hey, yeah, I did all of that stuff at a hotel, and it might have been on camera." Because if he did, I would have been like, "Yo, just give her what she want before she filed a complaint." But his biggest legal mistake was not settling this matter before she actually filed that civil lawsuit. I'm gonna just be honest. Most of the basis of what I'm reading in this indictment, it all stems from her complaint. I feel I'm not gonna say 100% confident, but I think if Cassie's complaint is never filed in court, she's paid and it never hits the public airway, it never is a court filing. I don't think he would actually be here in this situation right now. I think that was the number one domino that kind of tilted everything over. I think had he solve the settlement with Cassie prior to her filing the actual complaint in court because it was stupid. He only did it after a day. Like, you already knew what it was. Why the fuck you wait till a day? Because well, the reason why is because he lied to his attorneys and said it was false until that complaint hit. And then they was like, "Yo, did this really happen?" And then he was like, "All right, let's wrap it up." That's 99.9% what happened. But I think if he would have paid that off, it would have never been a filing. I don't think we would be here in this exact situation today. Narcissists always think they can get away with it. I agree. I wouldn't be shocked too. Narcissists always think they can get away with it. And they think that, hey, all I need is a chance to talk to them. This is what the typical narcissist defendant says in court during trial. They're like, I want to testify on my own behalf. And they're like, no, don't do it. And they'll go in there and they think, nah, just put me in front of the jury. Once they hear my side of the story, they all think like that. So I definitely agree. He was a pimp to his entire staff. Yeah, I agree. That's why the fact that he paid her off is going to haunt him in trial, which is crazy because he paid her off, but she can still be brought in to testify in this criminal matter. A settlement doesn't necessarily negate criminal exposure. Like, okay, oh, we settled that, so I don't got to worry about the crime ever coming up. That's typically not how it works. But I think if had he resolved this before she filed that complaint, I don't even think he's in this position today. He's probably still in his bed, doing whatever it is that he normally do. All right, doing separate FOs, Combs, among other things, hit, kick, threw objects at, and dragged victims at times by the hair, then assaulted. These assaults often resulted in injuries that took days to heal. Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participating in the FOs. Victims believe they cannot refuse Combs' demand without risking their financial or job security or without repercussions in the form of physical or emotional abuse. Combs also used the sensitive, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during the FOs as collateral to ensure the continued obedience and silence of the victims. Members and associates of Combs Enterprises, including Combs security personnel, at times carried firearms. On one or more occasions, Combs himself carried or brandished a firearm to intimidate and threaten others, including victims of and witnesses to his abuse, in or about March of 2024, during searches of Combs residences in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles. Law enforcement seized firearms, munitions, including three AR-15s with a defaced serial number, as well as a drum magazine. Now, on that, real quick, it was a good question that was brought up when we looked at the interview. Essentially, the question was brought up, well, why wasn't there any gun charges? I'm not sure why there weren't any gun charges, but I think I would assume, I would guess, just based on what we know about the residence, how many people could potentially occupy him. He had multiple residents where he wasn't there. I think he could have got anybody to really stand on that charge. Like, yo, y'all raided my crib. I wasn't even there. I was at my other house. I don't know. You know how many people got keys to my place? I don't know who brings what in there. It just because I own that place, it doesn't mean it's mine. There's other people in there. And I'm sure he probably, hey, when you got power, it's possible to get somebody to stand on the charge, stand on a gun charge if they don't got no priors. So I think that's the reason why. I think it would have just been hard considering the amount of traffic and access to the home and that he had multiple homes. I don't think they could have used a constructive possession theory like, okay, these guns are in your house, DFD. You have custody and control of that house. So those guns are in within your constructive possession. Yeah, that would probably work because DFD only got one domicile. You know what I mean? I don't got 16 places and 55 people don't even got keys to my places. So I think that's the reason why we didn't see a gun charge. All right. Members and associates, financial payments to victims, suppressing opportunities. Let's see. Help the can. All right. Instead, members and associates of Comb Enterprises help conceal the violence and abuse by, among other things, assisting Combs in monitoring and preventing victims from leaving locations such as hotels or Combs residences. These occasions included instances where victims were required to remain in hiding, sometimes for several days at a time. All of this is straight out of the Cassie complaint. To recover from injuries Combs inflicted without being publicly observed. Members and associates of the Comb Enterprises also assisted Combs in locating and contacting victims who attempted to flee his abuse. When employees, witnesses to his abuse, and others threatened Combs' authority or reputation, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise engaged in acts of violence, threats of violence, threat of financial or reputational harm, verbal abuse. These acts of violence include kidnapping, arson. In addition, on multiple occasions, Combs threw both objects at people as well as hit, dragged, choked, and shoved others. When Combs' authority or reputation was threatened by the possibility of negative publicity or legal or law enforcement action against him, including in or about late 2003, following public allegations of Combs' crimes. Combs and members and associates of the enterprise pressured witnesses and victims, including through attempted bribery, to stay silent and not report what they had experienced or knew to law enforcement. On phone calls, Combs and other members and associates of the enterprise, among other things, provided these victims and witnesses with a false narrative of events in an effort to conceal Combs' crimes. Combs caused these calls to be recorded on at least 2 occasions. So, yeah, they got all of that. All right, the racketeering conspiracy. All right, we almost done. The racketeering conspiracy from at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of filing of this indictment, blah, blah, blah. The defendant and others known and unknown being persons employed and associated by the Combs Enterprise described in paragraphs 6 through 12 earlier of this indictment, an enterprise engaged in activities that affected interstate and foreign commerce, blah, blah. All of that is just general language that they got to keep regurgitating and putting in place. Multiple acts involving kidnapping, chargeable under the following provisions of state law: California Penal Code 207, kidnapping, state law, aiding and abetting, state law, and conspiracy. Multiple acts involving arson, chargeable under the following provisions: California statute, attempted attempt, aiding and abetting, and conspiracy, all California statutes. Multiple acts involving bribery, chargeable under the following provisions of state law, all California state law. Multiple acts indictable under Title 18 of the U.S. Codes relating to tampering with a witness, victim, or an informant. Multiple acts indictable under forced labor, related to sex trafficking, related to transportation and inducement of travel for the purposes of prostitution. Let's see. Multiple offenses, including the possession with the intent to distribute or distribution of narcotics and controlled substance, including cocaine, oxycodone, uh, alperazim. I can't even pronounce that. Methamphetamine. I'm no way I'm reading that. Methamphetamines and a whole bunch of other ill shit. All right. It was part of the conspiracy that Sean Combs, the defendant, agreed that a Conspirator would commit at least 2 acts of racketeering activity in the conduct of the affairs of the Combe enterprises. Notice of special sentencing factor. Let's see, is this all right, we could bypass that. Count two, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, victim number one. The grand jury further charges from at least on or about 2009 up until 2018. The defendant affecting interstate commerce, recruited, enticed, harbored, provided, obtained, advertised, maintained, patronized, and solicited by any means a person knowing and in reckless disregard of the fact that the means of force, threat of force, fraud, or coercion. It is. I'm looking for the meat and potatoes. Okay. Any combination of the such would be used to cause person to engage in commercial sex acts and attempted, aided, or abetted and willfully cause the same to wit Combs, recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, and maintain a person, victim one, and attempted, aided, and abetted and willfully cause victim one to engage in commercial sex act. And victim one, I believe, is Cassie Ventura. Transportation to engage in prostitution. The same thing that we talked about, aided and abetted, blah, blah, blah. Same victim. Forfeiture allegations. Let me see. Let's see. All right. The defendant shall forfeit to the United States any and all property, real and personal, involved in, used, or intended to be used to commit or to facilitate the commission of said offense, and any and all property traceable to such property. Any and all property, real and personal, constituting or derived from proceeds obtained directly to. They ain't gonna get nothing there. So, answer. All right, that's pretty much the indictment. We can move in, and we're gonna pivot and dive into this damn detention letter. I think the detention letter is a little bit more interesting because the detention letter notes conduct that it looks like they didn't have the evidence for to actually indict, but that they believe is still pertinent to why he should have his ass in jail. Let me see. Yeah, these mugshots are fake. Yeah, I haven't seen one yet. Normally they kind of hold off on releasing the mugshots for like, I don't know, somewhere like 3 to 4 days, depending on if the person is like a celebrity. Normally they don't hit that hard. No wonder there was a shortage in baby oil. This food bought it all. Y'all in the baby oil, man. All right, let me go ahead and pull up this detention memo. I gotta make this shit big. All right, give me 1 second. Present screen. All right, we're gonna get through this detention memo, then we're gonna watch the outset of what happened, and then we're gonna rap about it because I generally think that this dude is up shit's creek without a paddle. But detention letter. This is a letter that they give to the court prior to making arguments as to why a defendant should remain in custody until the trial date. Let's go ahead and we'll do it that way so we can see it. The defendant was taken into custody this morning after a grand jury sitting in the district returned a 3-count indictment charging him with crimes related to his decade-long patterns of physical and sexual abuse against multiple victims and his use of force, threats, and coercion to enact his will, protect his reputation, and fulfill his sexual desire. That's crazy that all of this is because this dude making bad groin decisions. That's absolutely crazy. That's absolutely crazy. That's crazy as I don't know what. The government respectfully submits this letter in anticipation of the defendant's appearance before this court later today and in support of the government's request for the defendant detention pending trial. As set forth below, there is no condition or combination of conditions that will reasonably assure the appearance of the defendant as required and the safety of others in the community, not to mention the integrity of the proceedings. I agree with that. As reflected by the gravity of the charges in the indictment, the defendant is dangerous and poses an ongoing threat to the safety of the community. If released, he remains a serious risk of flight, despite the conditions offered by his counsel. Most glaringly, the defendant also poses a significant risk of obstructing justice. Indeed, as set forth below, during the course of the charged conduct, the defendant has attempted to bribe security staff and threaten and interfere with witnesses to his criminal conduct. He has already tried to obstruct the government's investigation of this case, repeatedly contacting victims and witnesses and feeding them false narratives of events as described in detail below. There are simply no conditions that would ensure that the defendant's efforts to obstruct and tamper with witnesses will stop. The defendant, therefore, cannot overcome the statutory presumption in favor of the detention, and the court should order him detained. And it's funny because we remember that Diddy's attorney was like, "Yeah, he's been cooperating," and then the AUSA said, "Like, nah, cooperation is a real loose definition. Like, just because you do the shit you supposed to do, don't mean you haven't been doing shit that you aren't supposed to do," which was a good point. The indictment returned by a federal grand jury sitting in the Southern District unsealed, charging the defendant with racketeering conspiracy from 2008 to the date of the indictment. Blah blah blah. Combs' use of violence. Let me see. Okay. All right. We almost to what I think is good stuff. Use of violence, threats, and coercion. Since 2008, the defendant and other members and associates of the racketeering enterprise alleged in the indictment, which includes the defendant's multifaceted business empires, wielded the power and prestige of the defendant's reputation as a musician, entrepreneur, and figure in the entertainment industry to commit federal crimes, including racketeering, sex trafficking, and other offenses as charged in the indictment. Sex trafficking and abuse, using power and prestige of the enterprise, the defendant lured female victims into the defendant's orbit, blah, 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 F-offs, F-Os, F-offs, F-Os. The defendant ensures victim will participate, blah, blah, blah. We kind of heard that. Other violence, let me see. Firearms. Okay. All right, we're gonna skip down to other violence. I think we heard enough of the baby oil and the FOs. All right. In addition to the defendant's physical, sexual, and emotional abuse of his romantic partners, the defendant repeatedly engaged in acts of violence directed towards his employees and others. As charged in the indictment, the defendant often assisted by members and associates of the enterprise engaged in kidnapping, arson, and physical violence, such as throwing objects at people, throwing people to the ground and hitting them, dragging, choking, and shoving others. Numerous witnesses, including the defendant's employees and others, observed or experienced violence from the defendant firsthand and sustained lasting trauma as a result. For example, in the early morning hours of December 22nd, 2011, the defendant and co-conspirator kidnapped an individual at gunpoint to facilitate breaking into and entering the residence of another individual. Individual one. Multiple witnesses would testify at trial as to the events surrounding the kidnapping and break in, the latter of which corroborated by police reports and other records. Approximately 2 weeks later, the defendant's co-conspirators set fire to individuals one's vehicle by slicing open the car convertible's top and dropping a Molotov cocktail inside of the interior. Police and fire department reports extensive documents the arson and concluded that the fire was intentionally set. Multiple witnesses would also testify to the defendant bragging about his role in destroying individual one's car. Shout out to Kid Cudi. That's crazy as hell. That is actually crazy as hell. Well, he'll be around, man. Yeah, he need to be in protective custody. Diddy was a freak and couldn't help it. It caught up with him. That's crazy, man. Like that's crazy that all this came from like bad genital decisions. That's fucking insane to me. It is more than sex. It is about power. I feel for the kids. They already lost their mom. This case doesn't even include that situation. Like, I mean, I don't know. Most of his kids is grown, the boys at least, and one of them actually has a similar civil lawsuit with regard to conduct or allegations on a cruise ship or a yacht. So I don't know, which is wild. Like that's one of the things I talked about. I I don't know how true it is, but it is one thing if I'm gonna be doing some illegal stuff. But if I'm doing illegal stuff, the last thing I want my do is my kids to participate in my debauchery. like that's the last thing. Like, nah, I want my kids to be upstanding citizens. So I mean, I get it is bad for the kids, but I like those grown ass kids who live in the lifestyle making disc records. I don't really give a damn about them. All right, I wonder if that 100 million granted to the male victim will be paid. Nah, that's not going to be paid. I did a video on that. Long story short, that's not going to be paid for two reasons. It looks like they can't prove that service or process was done. So it looks like there's a possibility that the affidavit where they said they served Diddy with the court paperwork could potentially have been fugazi, could have been forged or something like that. And this plaintiff has similar instances of trying similar conduct. Also, they also haven't had a hearing yet. They're supposed to have a hearing when you get a default judgment, somebody win because another person doesn't show up. They actually supposed to have a hearing because the plaintiff has to prove that the amount they're asking for is in fact the damages that they're entitled to. And there's no way that that dude can prove $100 million in damages. Next time we see Diddy, he go, yeah, he gonna be gray as hell, looking like he was during the pandemic. That's the wild part too. I was just telling somebody like everybody thought like in the '90s that Suge Knight was hip hop's boogeyman, and it was really this dude. Diddy a gangster? I'd be okay with never seeing him again. He started to look so dark between the eyes. It's like a cast was over him. Eyes sunken. He stayed in the forefront long enough. I I agree. Yeah, that looking like Suge Knight. Let's see. I have a feeling he's going to take himself out in jail. He has nothing to look forward to, even if he gets out. And if he gets out, he won't. Like I don't know. I think I would actually have him in. I wouldn't have him in general population. I would have him in ASEG. I would want to keep him protected as possible. One to protect him from taking himself out. I don't want him to get deleted in any means by his hands or the hands of another. And I think when you have a high-powered person who has these FOs, there's no telling who they got on those videotapes. It could be like religious figures, politicians, it could be anybody on those tapes, and that's a lot of like people don't want their business getting out there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. All right. So, all right, after the fire, more broadly, since at least 2008, allegations of the defendant's physical abuse to women and others have been publicly reported in the media and in Hollywood blogs and on podcasts. Law enforcement reports corroborate that police responded to several instances of the defendant's violence, including assaults against victims and other individuals. More recently, there has been an outpouring of other public allegations against the defendant, including claims of threats of physical and sexual violence dating back as far as 1990. In short, the defendant's violent tendencies are widely known. However, at no point during the past few decades has the threat of public exposure or law enforcement intervention deterred the defendant from continuing his abuse. Firearms. The defendant and members of his enterprise, including the defendant's security personnel, at times carried firearms, and the defendant himself carried and brandished firearms. Indeed, some victims were aware of the defendant's access to firearms. On one occasion, the defendant forced the female victim to carry a firearm on his behalf, and on another occasion, he pointed a firearm at a female victim. The defendant continues to have access to gun, including illegal firearms. In March 2024, during the search, they found the ARs. They had the serial numbers filed off, as pictured below. Two of the three defaced ARs were found in the defendant's Miami bedroom closet. In the Miami's bedroom closet, stored broken down in parts, along with magazines that were loaded with munitions and depicted below. One of the AR had a 10-round magazine loaded with 10 rounds, a large caliber 223 munitions, while the second AR had a 30-round magazine loaded with 19 rounds of ammunition. A large capacity drum loaded with 59 rounds was seized from the defendant's Los Angeles residence as depicted below. Hey, legally, if you a law-abiding citizen, like not a criminal or alleged criminal, and you can have a drum and you're a Second Amendment guy, you probably should get one. You never know when the zombie apocalypse is gonna break out. I got one, but I can't have it here because where I stay, they like to violate constitutional rights. So I had to put it at another place I have where I can have wherever I want there. They don't care. So if the zombie apocalypse start, I got to make it to a whole nother state so I can get all what I need to survive. All right. In addition, six legally purchased guns with serial numbers, some of which were stored in gun safes or recovered from the defendant's residence. And this is what I don't. This is what I think is stupid. Like, what? Why do you need illegal guns? I mean, like, I get it. You want to have the same security person around, nail around, and you are going to have some goons. That's it is what it is. Like, every rapper probably have some unofficial goon squad to protect them when they go certain places. But you could rotate security and have like off-duty police officers who could have any fucking thing that they want. So I don't know. I just think that's crazy. Like, you literally have no need to have. The only need you would have to have some illegal guns with serial numbers shaved off, with serial numbers shaved off, is if you're going to go do some illegal stuff with them. That's it. But if you just got like guns for like, yo, if y'all come in here messing with me, hey, I'm gonna exercise that right. You could have bypassed all of that. Although these particular guns, both legal and illegal, were seized, their presence in the defendant's home demonstrate that the defendant has access to and surround himself with both guns and ammunition. Likewise, even if the defendant was personally restrained by the court from obtaining new firearms himself, he could retain access of them through others. In sum, the defendant's regular use of violence and threat of violence, as well as the coercion described above against the victims and others, fostered a culture of fear in which these individuals believed they were unable to reject the defendant's demand without subjecting them to physical violence or abuse. All right. Bribe witnesses and obstructing justice. Throughout the time period charged in the indictment, the defendant faced possibility that his violent and criminal conduct could become public. The defendant and other members of the Association of the Enterprise pressured witnesses and victims not to report what they had saw, heard to law enforcement, or otherwise conceal the criminal conduct. For example, as noted above, in March 2016, the defendant was captured on video surveillance kicking, striking, dragging a woman in a public area of the hotel in an attempt to prevent her from leaving a FO. When the member of the hotel security staff intervened, the defendant attempted to offer the hotel security offer a stack of cash to ensure his silence. After the security guard refused the defendant's bribe, and after coordination between the defendant and his employees, the defendant's staff contacted other members of hotel security. At the same time, staff members were in close communication with the victims of the assault as well, all in the effort to cover up the defendant's assault and to prevent the incident from being publicly disclosed. Within days of the incident, the surveillance video disappeared from the hotel server. Similarly, throughout the time period charged in the indictment, members and associates of the enterprise have reached out to multiple victims on behalf of the defendant to convince them not to report the defendant's abuse. Most recently, in late 2023, immediately following uh, public allegations of certain of the defendant's crime, including physical and sexual abuse of women, the defendant and other members of the enterprise made repeated phone calls to victims and witnesses, during which they provided the victims and witnesses false narratives of the event in an apparent effort to conceal the defendant's crime. On at least two occasions, the defendant recorded those calls on a co-conspirator's cell phone, thereby attempting to obscure his involvement in the obstruction. All the recordings was stupid too. Like, just have a good memory. If you want to remember some stupid shit that you did that you probably not supposed to do, just be able to recall it by pulling up your memory banks. While the indictment against the defendant was unsealed today, the investigation into his and other co-conspirators' conduct is active and ongoing. As a result of the ongoing investigation, as well as the defendant's charged conduct outlined above, including obstruction of justice and witness tampering, the government is limited in its ability to fully set forth all known details of the defendant criminal's conduct, including details of certain witness testimony. To the extent the court has additional questions about the charged offense conduct or any other information set forth herein, the government is prepared to proffer additional information on an ex parte basis. Hold on, I'm gonna read applicable law, Bail Reform Act. Let's see. Federal courts are empowered to order defendant detention pending trial upon a determination that the defendant is either a danger to the community or a risk of flight. A finding of risk of flight must be supported by the preponderance of the evidence. Obstruction of justice is another ground for pretrial detention of the courts. Courts in the Second Circuit have held that pretrial detention for obstruction of justice is appropriate as long as the government can establish through clear and convincing evidence that there exists a serious risk that the defendant would threaten, injure, or intimidate a prospective witness. The Bill for Reform Act lists four factors to be considered in the detention analysis. So, this is what the court considered when they made their decision to keep his ass in jail. One, the nature and circumstances of the crimes charged, including whether the offense is a violation of Section 1591. Two, the weight of the evidence against the person. Three, the history and characteristic of the defendants, including the person's character, past conduct, financial resources. And four, the nature and seriousness of the danger to any person or the community that would be posed by the person's release. The concept of dangerousness encompasses not only the effect that the defendant's release has on the safety of identified individuals, such as victims and witnesses, but also the danger the defendant might engage in criminal activity to the detriment of the community. Finding a dangerous a finding of dangerous does not require that the defendant have criminal history, particularly if the defendant has a history of domestic violence. All right. For the reasons below, significant risk, the defendant can therefore cannot overcome the statutory presumption in favor of detention. Dangerousness, yeah, we know he's dangerous. Obstruction, we already know what it is. Risk of flight. All right, I'm a. Let me see real quick. I want to skim through risk of flight real quick, because so y'all can get an understanding of the court's analysis. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it says, nor can a defendant overcome the presumption that he is a risk of flight. The crimes that the defendant is charged with carry significant penalties, including a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years imprisonment and a statutory maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The possibility of a substantial sentence is a significant factor in assessing the risk of flight. It says, this fact alone would provide a compelling incentive for anyone to flee from prosecution. But the incentive to flee is especially strong for this defendant, who at age 54 faces a very real prospect of spending a substantial portion of the rest of his life in prison. As detailed below, the evidence in this case is incredibly powerful, as the facts set forth in the indictment and herein make plain. Dozens of victim witnesses have provided detailed and credible corroborating evidence, blah, blah, blah. It says, moreover, in this case, a risk of flight is augmented by the nature of the evidence against the defendant. The evidence against the defendant, which would be made public at trial, includes substantial evidence that is highly sensitive and has the potential to significantly negatively impact the defendant's reputation. For examples, dozens of video recording created by the defendant FOs with victims. For decades, the defendant has spent a significant amount of time and resources ensuring his criminal conduct avoids public scrutiny. Let's see. The defendant's proposed bail package is insufficient. Oh, yeah, we can read this one. And just so y'all are aware, and y'all probably already know this, but the bail package that they offered, I think it was like a $50 million bond that was to be secured mostly by a home that Diddy owns outright in Miami that was valued at $48 million. But we're going to get through this, and then we're going to jump into video. The defendant's proposed bail package is insufficient. For all the reasons set forth, there is no bail package that can reasonably assure that the safety of others in this case and the defendant, where the defendant has engaged in decade-long patterns of violence against women and others and has used his wealth and power to ensure that this criminal conduct goes unpunished through manipulative and obstructive conduct. In particular, the bail package proposed by the defense counsel is insufficient because it fails to adequately protect others from the defendant's violence, imposes measures to prevent and detect obstruction, or prevent the defendant from accessing his vast resources, including millions of dollars in cash, to evade prosecution, or dissipating those assets to avoid financial penalties for his crimes. The defendant counsel proposed certain bail conditions, including home detention with these electronic monitoring and a $50 million bond secured by the defendant's Miami property. These conditions are plainly insufficient to address the legitimate concerns set above, in particular, given the defendant's history of engaging in obstruction, The court must reject insufficient conditions proposed by the defense counsel, which do nothing to prevent or deter such conduct. All right, let's see. Second Circuit, that's all court stuff, court stuff. Notably, the defendant previously proposed conditions do not include provisions related to his access to electronic devices, which, as outlined above, the defendant uses to engage in obstructive conduct. Nor do the proposed conditions include information related to or restrictions on access to the defendant's vast resources, including multiple personal bank accounts in the name of the defendants, his businesses, and deep cash reserves, which could facilitate the defendant's flight. Similarly, the proposed conditions fail to protect against the dissipation of assets, which may be subject to forfeiture or penalties on the charges in the indictment. Finally, the proposed conditions do not include conditions that would limit the defendant's potential to engage in violence or abuse, such as drug testing and treatment and surrender of all firearms. That was stupid. That was you when you pull guns for somebody's house and drugs and shit, that's the first thing you're supposed to have in there. So those are all the reasons that they laid out and the court clearly agreed with. Let's go ahead and check out. I'm sorry, I just found a ridiculous comment. You think TD Jakes from the videos getting swallowed? Hey man, I wouldn't be shocked, man. Like, I can't see no reason why Pastor would be hanging out with Diddy. I mean, like, well, I could see a reason, but I can't see no legitimately good person, holistic, spiritual reason why. That's hilarious. Let's see. And it says many obliterated serial numbers can be recovered, electronic backscatter diffraction. I agree. And the other thing too is the finding out that I don't know. I don't know. I keep the comment to myself because I don't want to tell nobody how to finesse the system. But let's just say filing off the serial number of a gun isn't the best method to not track that particular firearm. And I'll just leave it at that. For those who know, y'all know. Who is it? Hey, what's up? No, but I could make you something when you get back. What you want? You want to get something or what? What you want to do? Just let mommy know what you want to do. All right, later. It says, shoot, Minister Society. I agree. Let's see. I'm sure he had all of his crimes as trophies, and the feds have them in their possessions. Yep, videos of absolutely everything. Now we're gonna watch this one final video. Is about what happened after his bail was set, how things played out. It's about 4 minutes and some change.
Hey, I'm Hallie, and tonight we are learning in just the last few minutes that a federal judge is now refusing to grant Sean Diddy Combs bail. Instead, he's going straight to jail tonight after Diddy pleaded not guilty to charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. Want to show you some of these brand new court sketches coming into us, like literally in the last 90 seconds. This is Combs in court after...
That sketch is wow. Okay, that one, that one kind of looked like him. That first one, I was like, is that Lloyd Banks? That sketch artist is wow.
Literally in the last 90 seconds. This is Combs in court after prosecutors arrested him at a hotel in Manhattan. It's where he's apparently been living for weeks, according to what a person familiar with the move tells NBC News. All of it a tipping point now in that sprawling federal investigation into the superstar's alleged years of sex crimes dating back to 2009. As we're just getting in some new and deeply disturbing details about the allegations against him and what looks like a massive criminal operation, allegedly, at least 50 victims and witnesses so far. And at the center of it, these hours and days-long sex acts known as, in their words, freak-offs that Combs supposedly orchestrated to abuse his victims.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them.
Prosecutors say Combs punched and kicked his victims to try to keep them under control. He'd also, they say, filled them up with drugs like ketamine and ecstasy for long periods of times, even using incriminating records to try to manipulate his victims. Prosecutors say they discovered this wide range of evidence against Combs in several raids. They found things, they say, like AR-15s, narcotics, more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricants. We should note here that an attorney for Combs says that he, I'm quoting here, will fight this with all of his energy. His team is already planning to appeal the bail ruling, meaning they will be back in court tomorrow as Combs has, as we mentioned, pleaded not guilty. We've got team coverage. Laura Jarrett standing by with the legal analysis piece of it. But I want to start outside court with Julia Ainsley because, Julia, this went fairly late into the day. I know you've been at the courthouse as a judge, as we've just learned, is denying this request for bail. Explain why that is and what else we've learned today.
Yeah, that's right. We were in there for about 2 hours as the Justice Department from the Southern District of New York laid out their case, very similar to what you saw in the indictment, saying why he should not be released because they say that he is a flight risk, he could leave the country, and also that he has a history of obstructing justice. They also pointed to how serious these crimes were, that with previous allegations of sex trafficking like R. Kelly and Jeffrey Epstein, the judges also denied bail in that. The country also pointed to how serious these.
That right there, that looked like Greg Oden. He ain't even do nothing. That artist is wild.
Crimes were that with previous allegations of sex trafficking like R. Kelly and Jeffrey Epstein, the judges also denied bail in that case. But his defense laid out a very lengthy rebuttal to all of that. We heard them say that this is different from Jeffrey Epstein and R. Kelly because there are no minors being alleged in the indictment here. They also say that these acts were consensual, and they point to victim number one, who's named over and over again, who they say is someone within a 10-year relationship with Combs that was toxic but consensual. They said that this person actually tried to sell this same story as book rights to Combs to try to get it out of the media's eye, but instead when he refused, then this civil lawsuit came up. But the judge ultimately said that he could not be released because he is a danger, he has a history of substance abuse and anger issues, and she really drilled down on the fact that after those civil allegations came out last November, he talked to multiple women who he knew during that period and who he apparently tried to change their narrative.
That would be absolutely wild. Like I don't think that would be it. The only way the only way I would waste time at the crime lab to test thousands of bottles of lube to see if there was a drug present. Like I just like maybe if they did a search warrant and they didn't find any drugs in the home. But if they did a search warrant and they actually found drugs in the home, all I need is drugs. I don't need to go through every bottle. That's just taking up too many damn resources. Or I would test a percentage of the bottles. Like, all right, if it's 1,000 bottles, we're gonna test 10% of them. But we ain't about to spend all day looking at Astroglide and putting it in a Bunsen burner to see if any fentanyl is present. That's a crazy waste of resources. So what I'm getting from all of this about the indictment, we're all fixated about the extra dry skin needed for some serious inventory. I mean, hey, that's funny. When we get fish on Friday or nah? Y'all hilarious, man. Y'all killing me. Y'all killing me. All right, let's go ahead and get through this.
So they wouldn't go forward and continue testifying or being witnesses to some of these acts that were alleged in the civil complaint and then were again put in the indictment today. And so she said in order to keep that from happening and really to end sex trafficking, since that can happen behind closed doors, it was best to keep him detained without bond.
Julia, it is, I think for a lot of folks, they will find this stunning considering that Diddy, right, Sean Combs, has been previously one of the most successful music superstars in the world. Just a year ago, he was handed a key to New York City. Now here we are after months of this being out in the public, these allegations being made public, his denials. He's potentially facing 15 years to life in prison. What does the timeline look like here?
Well, we understand that tomorrow they'll try to appeal the judge's decision. His defense will do that tomorrow at 3.
That would be crazy if they actually have another bond hearing the next day. I've never in my life seen a judge change a bond after one day. Normally, you can't even. Normally, it would take 30 days at least before you can get another bond hearing on the books. And then, like, normally how it goes is, oh, you sit in custody for a while. We may put a bond on or lower the bond. If it happens in one day, that would be
30. They'll meet again
an
next week
anomaly.
for a conference, and then perhaps we'll be looking at a trial early next year. But Hallie, I have to say what you said there was also striking. I mean, I watched him today sitting there very humbly in court in a black T-shirt, nodding along with his defense, otherwise just looking very stoic, straight ahead at the judge. It's hard to imagine this is the same man, but the timeline is also staggering. It's one thing to think, oh, that was something that happened a long time ago, but the prosecution today said that these acts, what they're calling sex.
Look at the timeline from November 23, Cassie sued. Right there is where he fucked up at in November of 2023. Had he gave her money in October of 2023 before she filed that lawsuit, I don't even think we right here having this conversation.
Sex trafficking and coercion all continued up until this year, Hallie, and started as far back as 2009. So this was not a brief window.
Julia Ainsley live for us there outside court in New York. Can you just give a sense really quickly, Julia, before I let you go? Is it just a scene there? I mean, I have to imagine, given who Sean Combs is, it is just a crush of cameras, a crush of people.
It is. It's been really crowded today, and there have been people who've been driving by, sometimes screaming "Free Diddy." Someone else stood up earlier and said Tupac would be ashamed of Diddy. It's been a lot of people, a lot of public interest here. I will say the court wasn't as crowded as I thought, but still nearly full, and also full of his friends and family who came out.
Thanks for watching.
Oh, that's hilarious. Hell, so that's what's going on with this case, man. I don't know. I would be shocked. They're not gonna get anything on this bond tomorrow. Even to get it heard would be an anomaly. I don't think that's gonna happen. But what do y'all think in the chat? Are y'all how do y'all think this is gonna play out? Because he's not taking a plea deal. Okay, he's not taking a plea deal. There's no way he's taking a plea deal. If he take a plea deal, he potentially at a minimum could be looking at 15 years. Who's going to want to, when you lived your life as a billionaire, being able to do whatever the fuck you want, you're going to go out swinging. So there's no way he's going to take some plea deal. I just don't see that. That shit's not going, if that shit get changed, that would be wild. That would be wild if they actually get his bond reduced in one day. Yeah. But I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think. I can tell y'all right now that the same way I knew that he was going to get indicted is this not going to end well for him. So I think that I was actually having a conversation with someone today about his net worth is estimated to be between $700 and $800 million. And so the question is, how much money of 700 million do you think he'll lose from going through all of this? Because I was like, think about it. To go from a billionaire status to having like $50 million, that's gonna be like that's gonna be like struggling. Like all the people in his family who he probably support who just don't do shit but get money off of him, that's gonna be crazy. Yeah, I agree. I think he done. He's not gonna take a plea. He gonna go to trial, and it's gonna be even worse. Because normally when you go to trial, like if you go to trial, and like I said before, if you make me do all the work in trial preparation, I'm never gonna offer a prosecutor is never gonna offer a better deal than the first deal that they give you, generally. And then the problem with Diddy is it's just nobody higher than you, bro. Like that's the sad thing about being the person on top of the pyramid. Like, you know, if you get somebody lower on the pyramid, they could be like, oh, I got some information on Diddy or on this other guy who's above me. But when you in the top, you ain't got nobody to snitch on. There's a rap. What kind of American are we living in when a rapper isn't allowed to smack his hoe? Hey, those days are over, man. Those days are over. Yeah, partners respond, match yours, he's effed. I agree, and rightfully so. All of this was just, again, egotistical, thinking you above the law. Like, I mean, honestly, the crazy part is, like, I feel like you could have had all the FOs you want and them not skirt all of the illegal stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's just crazy. I can't fathom. I don't know. I can't fathom. Like, you know how much all that baby oil costs? Like, yeah, man, That's a lot of money. You got to be a billionaire to buy that much baby oil. I couldn't do it. That's crazy as I don't know what. Let me see. He should have took an extended trip to Russell's place. Hey, I told you Russell got out of there and went to Bali, and he actually got served though with some civil litigation out there. But yeah, that Russell got ghost. Did he ever visit the White House? I don't know which White House. Obama's, Trump's, or Biden's? Which White House? Which White House you think is more likely that Diddy actually visited? Yeah. Stay moist, y'all. Peace out. Have a good one, Paul. Have a good one. I'm about to get out of here as well. He got it at Costco. Okay. He bought it at bulk. I'm about to say Clinton. Oh man, I don't know. That like of all the people who would be comrades with Diddy and possibly at one of those parties during the late hours, I probably would pick Clinton. Clinton seemed like a wild boy. He visited President Obama. All right. Being that he was using the estate in Florida for his bond, how much cash do you think he has access to, if any? That's a good question because most people have less than 5% of their net worth in cash, like less than 5%. So most people they probably have 3% in cash. So if you worked hard and at the age of 46 you became an everyday millionaire and you got $1 million net worth, most people aren't going to have 10% of that $100,000 sitting in cash. They would probably have somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000 sitting in cash. So I don't think he has a lot of cash readily available in comparison to his overall net worth. Like, yeah, he probably sitting on some M's, but compared to his overall net worth, him once being listed on Forbes as a billionaire, I don't know. Is I would be shocked. But generally, on average, most people keep about 30%, 20 to 30% of their overall net worth in cash. Because think about it, how much cash do you really want to keep around just kind of lounging in an account? Now he may get it in some type of investment account, or he was principal shareholders with Johnson and Johnson, where he helped in research and development of lubricants. Obama, yeah, I believe that because Obama thought he was a celebrity. Yeah, he wasn't getting that like you know how like what's that cheap ass lotion that you used to have and I don't know if y'all had it when you was in the ghetto. That shit was like water. That lotion was cheap as shit. Jergens, you put that shit on, your hands will be ashy soon as you get out. Man, your name is hilarious. Most of his money is probably overseas. Now I do think he's smart enough to do that. I do wholeheartedly agree that Diddy is definitely not a Tiffany Henry. He's actually smart enough to have money in foreign accounts that probably can't be traced. He has the connections, he has the resources, the network. So I 100% agree with that. And I'm gonna just be honest. If I were him and they let me go, if y'all were Diddy, just saying hypothetically, if you all were Diddy and the judge said, "Yeah, we're gonna give you a $50 million bond," and you made that bond, would you come back to court or would you go on the run? Y'all let me know what y'all would do in the comments. That's funny, but yeah, I'm telling you, if I were him, I'm not come 50 something years old, 53 years old, and especially if I know what I did, like it's one thing if like oh these things didn't happen, but if I know that all the stuff they're saying I actually engaged in and did, I'd be fucking gone. It ain't no goddamn way I would stick around. I mean, I'm already being charged with a crime. Might as well add fugitive justice to the mix. Baby oils a lubricant can be dangerous. Yeah, like that's funny. History is being made. The feds are going to create a FRICO charge. Yeah, a FRICO charge. That's wild. That's it. My baby girl calling me, so I got to make sure I get downstairs. I would have left before the indictment. Yeah, because now you're in custody. I agree. The time to leave is before you get arrested. I agree. With that much money, yeah, you actually could have went somewhere and paid a monthly fee to the government. Yeah, $1,000 baby oil is not currency. I mean, I don't know. Baby oil, where he about to go? Oh, do y'all think that he like going to be safe? in prison. Like, y'all think like if you put him in a real prison, general population, Sean Combs, he not a big guy. You put him in jail, like y'all think he gonna be safe? I don't think so. I think it's some. I think it's. I think that dude. Like I agree. Like I mean, I will say. I will say. I guess the definition it would be how you define safe. I don't know if he's gonna anything like that'll happen to him because I will give him one thing he has going for him. I think he has resources to essentially buy protection. So like it'll be easy for him to make a call and say, "Hey, put X amount of money every month on these dudes' books," and in exchange for that, he gets some type of protection. So I think that's going to be his route that he would have to go. They're gonna be they gonna be jealous in one song. If he got mouthy and keeps his hubris, he has a showcase of the past. No, unless he can prove useful. That's fair. Life of the block party. Can't stop, won't stop. Mm. He only think he's puffy now. Wait till he been in the jail for a few weeks. Yeah, Harvey survived. Yeah, right. Definitely booty. I don't know, man. I'm like, yeah, that's what I think. I agree with you, Enrique. I think that this dude could. I think he has the resources to pay. I think he has the resources to pay to be protected. But the other thing I think too is I think he gonna go full blown. I think he gonna go like full blown criminal. Like I don't. Y'all let me know. This is just my thought. Like what was the dude name who played for the Patriots? Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez was a straight killer. And without a shadow of a doubt, I think when Aaron Hernandez went to prison, I think he fully immersed himself in the prison culture. Whatever was going on in prison, he was like, "Hey, if I'm a shot caller, I want to be a shot caller in here." I think Diddy has that personality too. Like, you don't want to go from just being a person in power and then you go somewhere and you paying for protection, but you don't have any power. I think that same urge for power, that same egotistical, narcissistic kind of tendency of wanting to have control, I think he's going to experience that. He's going to be someone's bitch. Yeah, he may last longer than Epstein. I don't know. We'll see. If a man beats a woman, he can't handle another man. Yeah, I mean, if all fair arguments, I just think he has enough money to initially keep everybody off of him for the most part. Let me see. He's going to write books, song, etc. if he doesn't off himself. Otherwise, he's going to channel his talent to exploit the situation. Let's hope he uses protection in prison. If he goes to trial, he may have to name his accomplices. I think they already know his accomplices. Like it's anytime is a RICO case and they get the person at the top, they already I mean, we already know his accomplices. If we had to guess, all we would have to do is look at all of the other litigations. Like let's just think of who else was named in litigation along with Diddy. Of course we had Harv Pierre, who was named in one complaint. Now those are complaints, could be allegations. We also had what was the super guy? The what was the R&B singer who R. Kelly stole his swag? Aaron Hall. Let's see. Who else was named? Cuba Gooding Jr. I mean, like it was just so many people named in so many of these lawsuits. I think that it is what it is. I think they already got their witnesses lined up. I think the thing they doing now is considering this dude putting fucking Molotov cocktails in people's car. I think they trying to protect their witnesses and victims because everything is fair game now. Yep, yep. Yeah, yep, yep. I agree. I agree. Bieber, man, Bieber, Usher, those videos is wild. Like I can't even imagine the amount of celebrities who or famous people or powerful people who just got exposure because they got caught up on camera doing something that they didn't think. Say it ain't so hard, bro. Yeah, well, that's it for this video, y'all. I appreciate y'all tuning in for all of this Diddy drama. I don't think it's gonna be anything crazy anytime soon. He probably not gonna go to trial until I would say probably February through April of next year. They're gonna get through everything. So that's what I'm thinking. Oprah, man, come on, man. Y'all gonna throw Oprah in there? Correction, Diddy didn't write music. His artist writes all of his songs. Hey, he may find some talent in prison. You never know. Hey, that's it for this video. I appreciate y'all for letting me take a few moments of y'all time to go over this stuff. Y'all have a good one. And I'm these comments is, oh, that shit would be fire. 60 days in? Oh, that would be fire. That'd be fire. See, oh man, that would be amazing. They ain't gonna do that though, because 60 Days In, I actually like that show, 60 Days In, but I think 60 Days In are only done in state penitentiaries, if I'm not mistaken. I think I never seen 60 Days In done at a federal facility. Yep. All right, y'all. Y'all take care. Be blessed. Have a good one. Love y'all. Peace.